Good evening. Hello, everybody. What a great crowd. Oh my God, this is awesome. My name is Maura Reilly. I'm the director of the Zimmerli Art Museum, and I'm so thrilled to see the sea of faces here for this event this evening. We're here to celebrate the incredible exhibition, Indigenous Identities Here, Now, and Always. It was curated by Jaune Quick-to-See Smith, who, with bittersweet that we lost her last week, 1 week ago, tragically. So, little bit louder. Someone saying? Yeah. Speak loud. Okay. But this evening, we have the privilege of listening to Jaune's son, who is an artist and her collaborator in many ways. His name is Neal Ambrose-Smith, and we're delighted that he's here with us this evening. I'll give you a little info on him, his short bio, but he's a descendant of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Nation of Montana. Neal is a painter, sculptor, and printmaker, and he has a work on view in Indigenous Identities. Right when you walk down, there's a gorgeous neon teepee, and that's Neal's work there. So he worked with Jaune on the curation of this historic exhibition. And Neal's work is in innumerable really prestigious collections. I'll name a few for you. The New York Public Library, the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian, a municipal contemporary art gallery in Chamonix in France, and the Hongik University in Seoul, Korea, among many others. He received his BA from the University of Northern Colorado, an MFA from the University of New Mexico. Also speaking with Neal this evening is John Hitchcock, and he's also included in the exhibition in the tribal section, way in the back left of the exhibition, so please make sure to see his work as well. So Jaune is a contemporary artist and a musician based out of Madison, Wisconsin. Jaune is an enrolled member of the Kiowa tribe of Oklahoma and Comanche. He earned his MFA in printmaking and photography at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas, and received his BFA from Cameron University in Lawton, Oklahoma. He's been the recipient of numerous awards, the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation Artistic Innovation and Collaboration Grant, the Jerome Foundation Grant, the Creative Arts Award, and Emily Mead Baldwin Award in the Creative Arts of the University of Wisconsin, and many, many more. He's currently the Villas Distinguished Achievement Professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he teaches screen printing, relief cut, and installation art. So it is an absolute privilege for me tonight to be able to welcome these extraordinary gentlemen to the stage for this first event of Indigenous Identities. There are some seats in the front. Thank you again for coming.
Good evening. Hi. It's good to see all my friends. This is my good friend John Hitchcock. And to start off this evening, I'd like to do an introduction. And you're going to do it with me. Okay, you guys ready? All right, it's hard, difficult. All right.
Glasses?
There comes a time when we don't need glasses.
Amen.
Ab ish develish.
Amish develish.
Chitnes lemti.
Chitnes
Hutka es.
Buddha es.
Yamen sulti.
Yamen sulti.
Klu elie.
Ludelie.
Esya kreni.
Esya kreni.
Klu hut eat.
Luti.
Skut kaliach.
Sultanel.
Hasetched. And that means welcome all my relations, because you're all my relations. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. It's like we moved in up here. We've got stuff everywhere. Okay, I'm going to do a little poem. And my good friend John is going to play while I do my poem. What if there wasn't a word for art? What if the people and their cultures were connected to each other and the land? What if there weren't any rules about art? I've heard that before. No rules. Rules like if clay is on a table, it's a bowl and it's a clay pot. But if it's on a pedestal, it transforms into a vessel and it shall be known as ceramic. What if there was no difference between the textile on the floor or on the wall or on your back? It is art, or who decides? Hojo Nasha. My friend Lauren Shorty, who's Dene, once told me, Hojo Nasha, walk in beauty. What if things are created with care? If you cry in your sister's wedding cake, you might have a like water for chocolate moment. All things are connected. Some say Tlingit, Haida, Tsimshian formline design came from the shapes on a toad's or on a frog's back. And some say they're from the tail feathers of the red-headed flicker. And if you look carefully, you can see the trigon shape on the flicker's tail feathers. What if there was a holistic view of the world and that all things were connected and creativity was inherent in those things? Chief Seattle once said, all things are connected. And that if you dig a hole and you don't plant something, your horse will break its leg. Sir Isaac Newton, you know this guy, he once said that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Sir Isaac Newton's third law, all things are connected. You're a great audience. My friend Dwight Bilodeau, Blackfeet, once told me, when you make something so beautiful and perfect, you have to give it back. It's called a giveaway. That's what we call it. I did a Ocon with him one time, and we're sitting there, and he likes to sit on a 5-gallon bucket because it carries his carving tools. And we're sitting there carving, and he was telling me that story about, if you make something really great, you have to bury it, and so you can make more. And then he goes on to tell me that, see that ridge up there? I've got hundreds of carvings up there. And I said, Dwight, you could have had a show. He had carvings buried all over the reservation. Dwight would give them back to the land. Dwight carved stone that came from the land, and then it goes back to the land. We came from the land, and we will go back to the land. I came from the land, and I will go back to the land. And you came from the land, and you will go back to the land. We don't bury our dead, we give them back to the land. A giveaway. Giveaways are celebrations. Up at Hart Butte on the Blackfeet Reserve, my friend Gigi Kip, Blackfeet, had a naming ceremony, and at the end of the Ocon ceremony, they gave away names. It's a giveaway. At my sister's birthday party, we gave away blankets. It's a giveaway. What goes around comes around. All things are connected. Sometimes the whole community gathers for a giveaway. Some pueblos throw food and blankets off rooftops at New Year's, and you have to watch out for the cans. Giveaways. It's just a giveaway. Tlingit call it a potlatch. It was outlawed in Canada for many years, and it was against the law to give something away in Canada. Strange. Have you ever borrowed a cup of sugar? In fact, many aspects of tribal ideology, religion, music, and dance were outlawed in the United States until 1978. It was Jimmy Carter, actually, that struck down that law. Pretty good. It was against the law for me to dance, and now I dance every day. And so should you. We are all connected, all things connected. Peter York once said, everything in its right place. They say the richest person in the tribe is the one who gives it all away. I have some friends in New York that would say, well, you know, you give everything away, but then they owe you. Thank you. So, welcome to this fabulous show, and I wish we had more seats. I had no idea it was standing room only. This is amazing. You guys are fabulous. We would love to open up this forum to questions. So John and I will talk about whatever you want to talk about, if you have any questions.
Could you just, because it didn't have any time at the beginning, could you give a tribute to the woman who created all of this? Say her name very clearly.
Jaune Quick-to-See Smith put this together with Rutgers and everybody that works at Rutgers. Many, many names, Maura, Raven, and I helped.
And she's not here.
She has passed away last week. There's a great article in the New York Times. She has an obit in the New York Times. Okay. But this is a celebration. Okay.
Yes.
I'd love to ask a question. Tell us what it was like to work with your mother on such a historic exhibition as Indigenous Identities.
Oh, you don't want to hear about that?
Yes, we do. We all want to hear. We all want to hear that.
I've collaborated with Jaune for years. I mean, I grew up working in the studio with my blocks, and she was drawing and painting and stuff. So we've always had that kind of symbiotic relationship. And so putting this show together, well, we had just done the National Gallery show. And this one actually was a lot easier to do. And I think part of it is like some institutions, not every institution operates the same way. And so, but this, I have to say, Rutgers was absolutely fabulous to work with. And I think, well, Maura has a better story about Jaune and Maura getting together and talking about doing the show. And it's been years in the making.
A decade.
Yeah, 10 years. So, is that right, 10? And so anyway, we just, worked feverishly to get many of these artists that are here into the exhibition, to get the work together and to make it happen. Many of us who are natives from the Native community understand how difficult it is to work within our community. One of the things that Jaune did in the 80s, curating Native shows, she would fly to somebody's house and help them go through their stuff, pick something out, take it, get it framed, help them write a statement, and then ship the stuff to herself so that she could put the show together and then drive all the work to the exhibition space and hang it. And that's how it was done. Peter Jemison would tell you the same thing. In fact, Jaune was the internet back in the 80s and 70s because she would fly to New York and work with Peter. And then she would fly to San Francisco and or the West Coast and work with George Longfish. And so she was networking constantly and curating shows that way. So we already knew a lot of these people, and our community is growing, but it's not vast. It's not unending. So everybody in the show, John and I know. And I think everybody in the show knows each other as well. Like, we are, it's that Village People song, I think? I'm gonna steal it back. Anyway, so yeah, it was a long process of just getting all the people, getting the work together. Yeah, okay. Next question. Yes.
I'm interested in music. There were two lithographs in the show by Raven Chacon that got me thinking about this. And music is very, very different in different pieces of the Native community. And yet we've also lost a lot of the history, and music is now being recreated. Could you talk a little bit about that relationship between the lost and the new created and the importance of music?
I'm going to have John answer that question.
Well, what's the question?
The relationship.
It's a very focused question.
It was very focused about music. It lost music? Wait.
Lost and newly created.
Oh, there's so much newly created music right now. I mean, we have someone incredibly talented, right, Laura Ortman right here. That's one of the incredible artists.
One of my heroes.
Ron Shea is a very, very famous musician and creative that's in this exhibition. But I think of Raven Chacon and what's happening now and what's happening within the sense of Indigenous music, but also there's a lot of recordings that many of us have that are from reel to reel to cassette tapes of powwows and conversations, and those stories and the importance of that is another aspect. I work with a guy, Chris Applin, who works with the Cherokee Apache tribe, and he's actually recording and going and taking some of those and digitizing and working with the tribe itself. And I think several tribes are doing very similar things to keeping track of this sense of community, but also the way the songs have shifted over time. And I think that's important. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it briefly.
I think that's good. That's a good one. Okay, yes.
Hi. One, it's beautiful to see in Oklahoma, and I'm very far with a hammer on the camera. Really beautiful, kind of space with the phone. But I'm new to this exhibit. I'm curious if we can take into account maybe the one that's a little more of the process of curating these pieces. What was chosen? How did artists come to send these pieces off to workers we exhibit here? Just what you can share about that story.
So,
Neal, sorry, just repeat the question.
okay, so the question is, how were the pieces selected curatorially? And Jaune picked things that she likes, and, well, I'll say this, it's not that hard to go through any of those artists up there and pick something to fit the criteria for the show. That wasn't difficult at all. Some artists it is, like, if you want to do a show about realism, it'd be hard to dig through Rauschenberg's archive, But yeah, so it wasn't really a chore in that way. It was actually really a joy to look at the work and fun to pick the pieces that you really like and to get them into the exhibition. One shift was putting together the 4 sections of social, land, tribal, and political. And I try not to use that word. That came later, but and that was also really fun to move works into those sections. A lot of the work up there, crosses genres. It doesn't just stay in one lane. There's a lot of work that can be political, and it can also be about land. It can be tribal, and so forth. It was really a fabulous process.
you gave us the impression that the people in this show know one another. Are they able to support one another? You know, because I can hear such great distances, and I know how important it is to be able to bounce ideas off of people and look at each other's work and all of that kind of thing.
I feel strange sitting because you guys are sitting and it's hard to see you. So I'm going to stand. You want to stand? Sure. Okay. I know this guy is amazing. If you got a gig, this is the one. The support in like artist community, like artists get together and critique each other's work. We don't necessarily have that in a physical sense, but I will say social media was a game changer, and it made it easy to find artists and for us to stay connected. And you don't need a $500 phone bill every month and a phone card for AT&T and payphone anymore. You know, like you can just get on Instagram and you can look at work and you can pick out, find out what somebody's doing, and you can really stay connected that way. And a lot of these young artists are really, really good at it. I'm not so good at it, but they're really good at it. So I think that's, if that answers your question, that's where it is today. I'm in a sandbox out in New Mexico, and so my mom and I, all we had was each other. And now it's just me, so I gotta find somebody else, you know, to work with to critique my work and that sort of thing. But yeah.
I think also there's multiple communities, and there's multiple communities within the East, West, in the middle too, in the Midwest. And I'm fortunate to be teaching at a university, University of Wisconsin-Madison, and so that relationship of meeting with artists and inviting in Native artists in particular, having them work with us on campus, but also Tandem Press, which is a shop that does prints. And so there's been multiple artists, many of them that are in the show, that have done prints with us. And the other thing, if I think about, like, I know Jaune is very, very important in its relationship to printmaking and the importance of that and how it is a community. Because in a print shop, Neal's taught printmaking at IAIA, I teach it, and Marvin Bugay, who's in the show, teaches at the University of Oklahoma. So there's this network. Melanie Yazzie, who's in Colorado. So these artists all know each other, but we also influence each other and our students. And some of those students they're in the show as well. So it's kind of amazing how that community building within institutional space, or in those institutional spaces, have taken us into another direction. If it wasn't for Jaune in some contexts, for me years ago, her introducing herself to me through the internet, through an email about curating a show, this was in 1998, you know, it changed my perspective too. And so those kinds of communities are always important as well, and how they function. And I think Crow Shadow, that's another space that's very important within the printmaking context. Wendy Red Star's print that is in the show, as well as my print, was done at Crow Shadow. So James Lavendor, who's in the show, who started Crow Shadow. So that's been another method of thinking. And if you look at in the tying together of many of these artists, how they seen each other, respect each other, but also help each other. And so that's a huge part of it. You know, in the Community House, when Community House started years ago, James, what you did.
Peter Jemison.
Yeah, like what you did was an important component in New York. And for any of us living outside of New York and coming there, that was a huge part of thinking. My first exhibition was in 97, I think. Joanna Bigfeather was the curator then, and then later Kathleen Ashinobi. And so that shift and those connections and knowing each other, and then how we've all moved up and through institutional spaces and worked with each other and helped bring each other up, that's a huge part of all of this.
It's a product of the BIPOC community. You know, we're no different than many other communities of color, in that you have to make your own space to make it happen because you're not invited. I mean, it's simple, ugly, but simple. And so Jaune did that. You know, she opened the doors and created shows and, you know, pushed us in there. kicking and screaming. And it's been quite a journey, but I mean, look where we are. I mean, you know, she had a retrospective at the Whitney, and I mean, next we need a president, right? We're working on that. I think we're working on that, and so it's great. It's really, really great.
Thank you for sharing those names with us.
Yes.
Much like this exhibition, it's such a strong reflection of Jaune's career of curating and amongst, of course, her art making. But I just want to publicly and personally express my gratitude for the support that she gave artists, for bringing them up, curators, for helping, collaborating, writers, for recommending them for publications. And there's just so many people throughout her entire career, that she's helped. And I'm grateful for that, and I just want to acknowledge it. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you guys hear that? Okay. It's good. It's good. I think we all sort of have the same kind of sentiment. And many of us are miracles for being here.
Could you each talk
survivors.
Could you each talk about your works in the exhibitions?
Well, John Hitchcock's print. If I was going to pick a piece that I wasn't really excited about, it's a wonderful print. How many of you have seen? You guys haven't seen the show yet? Oh, okay. Oh, you're going to love it. So we're not going to hold you too long. Yeah, spoil it. All right, but yeah, go ahead. Spoil it. Spoil it.
Okay. Let's see. So mine's a lithograph, and it was printed at Crow Shadow. And it is multiple color runs of really bright colors and also birds flying through it. But it's in reference to the bright colors. It's weird because I had eye issues and I had cataract surgery recently. And so my eyes were really bad when I did this print a couple years ago. And I thought I was seeing the colors that I was seeing, but now my eyes are fixed. I'm looking at it and oh, the colors I'm using. This is kind of crazy. But I like it. I'm into it. But the images are in reference to Oklahoma, where I'm from, and so there's these dot-like shapes, and the dots themselves are in reference to beads. So my grandmother's a beadwork artist, and I was really influenced by her. There's more to the story, but basically the influence of her beadwork, as well as there are this horse mask, and this is where the political part comes in. General Mackenzie in 1874 raided and killed Kiowa, Comanche, and Cheyenne people, and he forced 2,000 horses off of a cliff in Paladuro Canyon. And so I'm referencing these horse masks with little X's on them in reference to those horses, but also in reference to buffalo, but also in reference to, you can say, COVID, anything that has to do with death from the beginning of wars to current, and our service as Native people too into service. So there's those references that are coded in there, but it's also coded with really bright colors to have joy and happiness. And the other side of it is what my grandmother would talk about colors and their relationship to day colors and night colors. And so there's the bright colors in reference to day and darker colors, which were referencing night. And so learning how to draw from her as a little kid was a huge component of my life. I actually would sit next to her while she beadworked, and I would draw designs, like geometric patterns, and then she'd have me go outside and I would draw the flowers outside. And then I'd come inside and she'd say, what I want you to do now is think about what you've been looking at and make something up. So she was teaching me imagination, imaginative drawing from observation and conceptualizing, and then talking about color theory. And then she'd say, all right, lay those drawings down, and she'd give me a critique. So I was getting like art theory from my grandmother's Comanche before I ever went to art school. And so this was kind of an amazing experience to have this conversation. And that's kind of what that print's in reference to multiple things.
It's super lush print. The colors are just rich, but largely, lithographs can really have that kind of nature when they're printed. Very graphic and lush. Love it.
I'm glad the printer could see that, because I couldn't.
I have a neon teepee upstairs. over there. And I was flipping through an AE catalog in about 2008, abstract expressionist, and I saw this triangle by Pier Paolo Calzolari, and it said abstracting at home, and I recognized it as neon, but it was a black and white photo, and I thought it was a teepee, because that's like my culture, you know. If I see a triangle, I see teepees, you know. When people see steak, they see money. I don't know, you know, that kind of thing. And but it wasn't a teepee after all. It was just a triangle, and so it was just an epiphany moment that I decided, oh, I'm going to steal it and put teepee poles on the top and an ear flap on it, and then it'll be done. In fact, I drew it out with the poles, and I showed it to my mom, and she said, it needs an ear flap. And so I put an ear flap on it, and so I went to this neon guy in town who's from New York, and he used to do the neon in New York, and he's like, oh yeah, I remember working on your mom's paintings, because she put neon in her paintings in the 90s. She's done everything, she's crazy. And so he helped me with this project, and so I made this really groovy teepee. So I took this Italian artist, which I thought was kind of funny. It was like kind of a spaghetti western, you know. He's doing teepees, but he had no intention to make a teepee, and but I made his work better. And I think that's the best use of art history right there. Which, you know, as educators, you know, we're always like drilling the kids in the head with the art history, you know, and we're doing dual duty. So we're doing Native American art history because it's different, and we're also doing the European canon. So we got the Native canon, the European canon, and I think all the Native educators in here do the same thing. That we have to do both because there's reasons that things click in our head, and a lot of our identity and stuff comes, it just emerges and surfaces in the work. So anyway, that's enough about me. Any hands? Okay.
I found it really interesting that you would reference the Native art history. Now, I know a lot about, you know, work and all that, but I'd love to hear even just a little skeletal bit of how you approach and what you say about Native American art history.
Well, like I said in the poem, this is like world history in 15 seconds.
That's it.
That we didn't have a word for art because art's a holistic thing. It connects. It's connected to everything, and so nobody really thought about it in a separate way. And so there's that. And then if you think about quill work, where they take porcupine quills and bite them to flatten them, and then dye them, stain them, and then weave them into clothing, like pixels, and then trade, you know, was happening all the time. We were great traders. We were trading today already, and we went to the guitar store, and so I know. Anyway, so beads showed up, and that was the new pixel, and so and they're easier to use than quills, and everybody's about economy, and you just can't get around that. Beads are faster than quills. So beads took that over, and then you fast forward to like 1995, and you got Photoshop. So that's the new beadwork. It's pixels again, and so we're already like trained with that. So we have that moving forward. Like that's a really significant concept of thinking about our identity and how we relate to imagery. And then you fast forward to, and this is where we get into politics, because in order to understand all of Native art history, you have to start talking about genocide and government laws designed to eliminate us. And so starting with like, you know, pushing us together, squeezing us into places that with other tribes that we don't like, which happens all the time, Like, you know, I'm Salish, and then there's Kootenai on my reservation. Well, we never really got along. So they put us together, and that's, you know, that's by design. So that there's that compression, and then you get boarding schools, and so you're moving people out. And so it's not till like the 50s where you start to see like drawings and tempera paint use, because the kids are being taken into these boarding schools. And so that's their first introduction to art. Still, there's no European art history. It's just water paint. And then you've got people moving off the reservations because there's no jobs and there's no work and you're starving. And they get government jobs, they work for the BIA, and they get tossed across the United States away from the reservation, away from their culture, and they're going to colleges and they're getting a college education. So they're getting exposed to European art history, and then they start getting exposed to other things like sculpting and oil paint and like, wow, you know, all this crazy stuff. So late bloomers in that regard. And so my mom didn't have any art history until she was 29, something like that, 30 maybe. And so she didn't know anything about, she knew a few artists and she had studied a few things, I know, but she really didn't have any formal art history training, but she had the impetus for it, and so her story is a little behind in that regard. But Fritz Scholder had lots of training and studied with California artists, and anyway, every native artist has a different art history, but they're all important. We're working on that documentation, actually.
Yeah, I think that's it too. Is that the history's now, like we're living in it.
We're living
in this
it, yeah.
moment, and we're living in this.
You're
space.
living it,
yeah,
with us.
The show is, and also I think there's, like we said, every artist has different histories. Kiowa 5 was one that I grew up with in Oklahoma. Oscar Howe was a huge influence. Oscar Howe had a big exhibition.
Kiowa 6.
Kiowa 6. Kiowa 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so there's like a relationship to those histories, but I think too within what's been going on within the last 4 or 5 years too, we're seeing things shift, and it's been shifting for a while. I can remember going to an exhibition with James Luna years ago in the 80s or 90s, mid-90s, and that time frame to coming to the Winnie Biennial a few years ago, Laura Ortman was in, and Jeffrey Gibson was in that one, and there were other, I think there was a show of T.C. Cannon at the National Museum of the American Indian. Then there was a huge beadwork show at the Smithsonian, and now there's a curator, Patricia Americo Norby, who's there curating Indigenous. And so there's these Indigenous perspectives and points of view that are currently within the institutional space and curatorialship. So education has pushed that and made a space for us, and now we're here, and now we're having this conversation in the histories now. So those histories need to be recorded. I was listening to a video of Jaune a few days ago where she was talking about like these stories need to be recorded. And I think of my friend Chris, who does record those sounds and that music, and it's like we have to like record as much of this as possible because it is happening, and it's happening now.
Yeah, and largely our community doesn't have a sense of entitlement, so things take a little longer. We don't expect to be owed anything, and so we have to work for it, and it's always been in our minds. Like, yes, we have casinos, but it doesn't mean that we think we're going to win something. Like most of us, when we go to a casino, it's just fun. We don't have any kind of. Although I do have a good friend, and your friend too, Joe Fedderson, who always wins when he goes to the casino.
Yes. Can you describe the work of Washington students and that part of the show that have an everlasting effect on you?
So Michaela Patton has this wonderful piece that's not inside the main gallery, it's just outside. And there's a great reason for that. And she was doing a residency in Roswell, and she was looking at their native collection, and it was in the basement or something, and buried and nobody was interested in it. And it's one of those things that we were like, why are you not interested in it? You collected it or something. It's here. It has value, and it's art. And anyway, so she was like, I'm going to make something that gets in your way so you pay attention to it. And so she's got this piece with these tentacles, these tassels that go way out into the space on the floor. And you can't help but get sucked into it or step on it or bump into it or, So it took up too much space. So we couldn't put it up here in the main show because it's working. It's doing its job. It's a wonderful political piece. And so it's handmade paper and it's these wonderful boxes with these tassels that come down. And I think it's deer hide, is that right? Yeah, deer hide tassels. Really, is it brain tan? Oh. Anyway.
Not that traditional.
Yeah, I know. We're urban Indians. Anyway, I love that piece, and I love the intent and the story behind it, and the content. In fact, 100% of the works that you will see have content. None of us do anything that doesn't have any content in it. I mean, I think some of us try, but I see content always in Native work. Do you want to talk about a piece?
I think about I keep going on the educator thing, but I think of Melanie Ozzie and also Marwan Begay, and so they're not my students, but we share students, and some of the people they've worked with end up in our program or I've worked with them, and so there's a crossover, and also we've also worked together as artists and printmakers and workshops, and so there's something about the look of, I traditionally was trained as a printmaker, so when I look at work, I'm thinking like a printmaker, but I make like an artist, so I'm not always making prints. I do music, sound, all kinds of things, and so Michaela Patton's like, that's not my student either, but that work, I just love her work. I love, some of the installation-based work that's in here, dimensional work, and the videos too. So like, check out the videos. There's some powerful videos in the video.
Yeah. In fact, we have a lot of students up in that show. A lot of the work up there are students and your students, and some of them were my students, and then they became his graduate students. And so that, but some of those students are here today. Michaela Patton is right back here, and she's got her business cards. And we have some Feddersons. So Joe Fedderson, fabulous artist, has two nieces. So Kari and Ryan. I can't see everybody that far. My glasses don't work that way. And
Anna's here.
Anna, oh, that's right, Anna Hoover. Yeah. And Laura Orton. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you guys should stand up. Stand up, artists.
All the artists, stand up. Here we go.
All right. How are we doing on time?
Yes.
So let's give another thank you to Neal and John for this amazing celebration of partnership. So we're going to take a brief pause or intermission before we continue the program. So if you haven't seen the exhibition, we ask you to go do so now. There is a reception upstairs. Please return down here at 6:30. We'll continue. We have more remarks and homage for John, so please return down here at 6:30. But go see the show if you haven't already.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for coming back. Some more exciting additions and comments and remarks for this evening, so thank you for joining us. So my name is Maura Reilly. I'm the director of the Zimmerli Art Museum, and I want to welcome you to the museum for this extraordinary opening celebration for Indigenous Identities Here Now and Always, curated by the inimitable artist, Jaune Quick-to-See Smith. Now, it's a bittersweet moment for us at the museum, very much so. With the opening of what is Jaune's most ambitious curatorial project, culminating with 3 years of work and coinciding with her passing 1 week ago at the age of 45. So it's with deep sadness and profound respect that we acknowledge her passing. And we want to extend our condolences to her son, Neal Ambrose-Smith, who is with us this evening. Her son, and collaborator. Now, Jaune's legacy is immeasurable, as many of you know in this room. An activist, artist, pedagogue, mentor, curator, and citizen of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Nation, she ceaselessly endeavored to challenge assumptions around Indigenous identity and contemporary Native American art. She championed justice, amplified Indigenous narratives, and inspired countless individuals to use their voices towards creativity and to enact change. Many of those voices are on display in Indigenous Identities. Now, in recognition of her passing, I'd like us to offer to her a moment of silence. Now, before discussing this extraordinary exhibition and others on view, I'd like to start with an acknowledgement that the land upon which we stand is the ancestral territory of the Lenape people. We pay respect to Indigenous nations throughout the Lenape diaspora, past, present, and future, and we honor those who have been historically and systematically disenfranchised.
Can you please speak into the microphone directly?
Sure. Including 3 federally recognized nations in Oklahoma and Wisconsin, the Delaware Tribe of Indians, the Delaware Nation, and the Stockbridge-Munsee community. We also acknowledge that Rutgers University, like New Jersey and the United States as a nation, was founded upon the exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples. I'd like to now move towards inviting Dr. Francine Conway to the podium. Dr. Conway is the Chancellor of Rutgers-New Brunswick and a distinguished professor in the Graduate School of Applied and Professional Psychology. She's also an internationally recognized clinical psychologist. Importantly, I'd like to also say that she has been a strong supporter of Indigenous identities since its inception. And on behalf of the Zimmerli, I want to thank her for her generous support. So, Dr. Conway.
Thank you, Maura. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right, I love it. Call and response. First, before I move forward, I really want to acknowledge so many people came together to make today happen, to make this evening happen. And I just want to thank you, Maura, thank you to your team, and thanks to everyone who had a part to play in this amazing display exhibit. So, this is a joyful occasion. The opening of one of the largest ever museum exhibition of contemporary Native American art. But we need to mark it by acknowledging the loss of its curator, one of the best known and best regarded Native American artists of our time, the great Jaune Quick-to-See Smith. Maura has already mentioned the great impact of this loss, and we can take comfort in knowing that Jaune lived her life so well, so deeply, and with so much influence. She made a tremendous impact for Native American people of all tribes and nations, for the generations of Indigenous artists, who took inspiration from her and for the larger culture of this country that she loved. As an artist, she revolutionized the genres that she worked in and powerfully asserted the strong connection that today's Native American peoples have with their ancestral lands. She brought lost histories to light. She investigated our understanding of our maps and landscapes, and she called out the tendency to erase and ignore the experiences of the perspectives of America's indigenous people. In Jaune Quick-to-See Smith, in her honor, and in recognition of the tremendous contribution she has made to indigenous culture and to our national culture, it is entirely appropriate today that we acknowledge the great scope and the great significance of this new landmark exhibition that she curated. And that we talk about Jaune's vision for this exhibition, beautifully exemplifying Rutgers' mission of excellence in education, scholarship, and service. Maura, the Zimmerli Art Museum has long been a vital part of Rutgers-New Brunswick Academic Academy. But today, I congratulate you and your team for elevating Zimmerli's recognition and impact. I also extend my gratitude to our guest curator, Mrs. Quick-to-See Smith, to this exhibition's graduate student assistant, PhD student Raven Manygoats, and to the many artists featured in these walls. Some of the artists are with us this evening. Please stand once again to be recognized. Now, just a little bit about Rutgers-New Brunswick. Our academic master plan highlights 4 pillars of excellence: scholarly leadership, innovative research, student success, and community engagement. The Indigenous Identities exhibition embodies all 4 of these pillars in the way that it challenges the false notion that Indigenous culture is singular, monolithic, static, and confined to the past. Here today, nearly 100 Indigenous artists representing more than 50 nations and tribes showcase multiplicity, diversity, vibrancy, and change. This is scholarly leadership in service of our local, national, and global communities. It broadens our perspective, fosters understanding, and inspires us to see the brilliance within each other. Maura, thank you for making the Zimmerli a platform for artists who have been underrepresented in our cultural discourse. And thank you for this opportunity to connect with Zimmerli, Rutgers-New Brunswick, and the incredibly talented and generous Jaune Quick-to-See Smith. I am so sorry that she's not able to join us today, but grateful and proud to have been able to connect with her through this exhibit. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Conway. The origins of Indigenous identity date to 2015, when I first met Jaune in New York City at Performa. We started a conversation about the curation of Richard Bell's first museum retrospective. He's an Indigenous Australian artist whose exhibition I curated. And it naturally led to a conversation about contemporary Native American art, its brilliance, its neglect, and ultimately the dearth of large-scale exhibitions. Together that day, Jaune and I vowed to organize an exhibition to showcase the breadth of contemporary Native American art. So Indigenous Identities began with that first conversation, and now, over a decade later, I can say that it has been an honor of a lifetime to be able to have been able to make space for her and for her vision here at the Zimmerli. As Dr. Conway conveyed, the show itself is an unprecedented survey, foregrounding the significance of identity in contemporary Native American art. As we've said before, it needs to be said again, the exhibition marks Jaune's largest curatorial endeavor, and it's also one of the largest museum exhibitions of contemporary Native American art to date in the United States. Now, according to Jaune, it is the very first exhibition of Native American art focused exclusively on identity versus craft or weaving or glass or photography or other artistic genres and categories. The exhibition is, in her words, a celebration of life. Comprising over 100 works across a wide range of media, from beadwork and jewelry to video and basketry, Indigenous Identities foregrounds the significance of identity in art making through the diverse practices of 97 artists collectively representing, as you've heard, over 50 Indigenous nations and tribes. Now, featuring works, the exhibition features works from the last 50 years by both well-established and emerging artists. So it crosses several generations and examines subjects with historic and continuing relevance to Indigenous communities in North America, including stolen lands, genocide, lost languages and cultures, and invisibility. Now, celebrating the breadth of groundbreaking contemporary art by Native artists, Indigenous Identities brings to light a series of guiding concepts. Land, social, tribal, and political are the thematics, and they unify the works on view and speak to the permeability of art in Native American life. Now at the Zimmerli, we are also concurrently presenting a focused solo exhibition of Jaune's work, which I hope you'll have a chance to see as well. And it allows us to celebrate her artistic practice in addition to her curatorial genius. Now that exhibition was curated by Raven Manygoats. If Raven could please raise her hand. Up here in the foreground. Raven Manygoats is a Rutgers University PhD student in history. She organized that exhibition and also worked very closely with Jaune over the last 3 years to realize this exhibition, so I want to thank you for that also. The, also on view upstairs, which some folks won't know, it's off the lobby, is an exhibition of book illustrations by Steph Littleberg, who's a registered member of Oregon's Grand Ronde Confederate Tribes, and that's a beautiful small exhibition that I hope you don't miss. Now, an exhibition as large as Indigenous Identities necessitated many lenders, as you can imagine. So on behalf of the Zimmerli, I extend my thanks to those who graciously agreed to part with their gems so that we could share them with additional audiences. I wouldn't be doing my part as a director if I didn't also say that the exhibition, as ambitious as this, requires committed funders. The exhibition and its accompanying publication and public programs are supported by the National Endowment for the Arts, the Nissan Foundation, Middlesex County, which is our county here, and the Board of County Commissioners through a grant from the Middlesex County Culture and Arts Trust Fund. Thank you to Middlesex County and, of course, to Rutgers University. Additional support was provided by donors to the Zimmerli's Major Exhibitions Fund, and I want to thank them. Catherine and James Bergen, Joyce and Alvin Glasgow, Sunday and Brandon Jones, and Hina and Hema Penda. Generous support for the bilingual aspect of the exhibition, which I hope you've noticed, was provided by our Bridges Foundation and their Access for All program. We are trying desperately to become a fully bilingual museum, and that's important to us. Now, the Zimmerli's operations, exhibitions, and programs are funded in part by Rutgers. but also by the Andrew Mellon Endowment Fund and the Avenir Endowment Fund, and additional support comes from Bloomberg Philanthropies and the New Jersey State Council for the Arts and the many donors and friends that support us. So thanks to all of them for making this possible. Now, many hands, of course, helped realize this exhibition in the galleries, and I want to acknowledge my extraordinary team who worked diligently over 3 years to make this show possible, to move it forward, and their efforts have my deepest appreciation. Now, given that this exhibition is honoring Jaune, we felt it was important that it is her voice that closes the remarks this evening. Jaune prepared some welcome remarks for us all, and in her absence, her son Neal will read her remarks on her behalf in both Salish and in English. And thank you, Neal, for doing so, for bringing us Jaune by this video that's about to start. Thanks.
Ab ish demelish, chitnes lemde, hutka es, yamen tuts de, clu edlie es yap kreni, clu hut eat, skut cadlioch, se etched. Hello, all my relations, and welcome to our gathering in celebration of our wide and varying tribal identities in art. Indigenous Identities foregrounds the significance of identity in art making through the diverse practices of 97 artists, representing more than 50 distinct indigenous nations and tribes across the United States. Thank you for coming to this important gathering, and we wish you well. Lem lench, hut kuts eached, chien Kootenaksum, yamen tuts, hu kami, kup, and en.
Once again, thank you, Neal, for delivering that message from Jaune for us. That concludes our remarks, and I hope you'll enjoy the festivities again upstairs, the music, the food, the drink, and please the exhibition. Thanks again for coming.